Hi, hello, welcome. This is the Unstoppable You podcast. I'm your host, Evie, life and business coach, and I'm excited to be here, but I'm also a bit nervous for today's conversation because it's a really vulnerable one. And yeah, there's some feels around it, but you know what? Even though it's really vulnerable, I feel like if this can help someone along their journey or navigating a challenging time, then that's gold to me. Like that's exactly what I would hope that would come of this. So that means that I'm being the leader, I'm going first, I'm doing the hard stuff, I'm talking about the things that we don't often talk about, and I think that that is so important and so necessary. And I certainly know along, points along my journey there's been moments where I wish more people were talking about these kind of things. And yeah, and so I just knew that at some point in time, I wanted to share my journey and I wanted to share my story, not because I'm special in any way, not because my journey is, nothing to do with me essentially, but really just so that others perhaps don't feel so alone, or maybe there's some wisdom, there's some insights, maybe there's something that you can take, some hope perhaps that you could take from this conversation today that would be really helpful and healing for you. So before we dive into today's conversation, there is a trigger warning. I will be talking about pregnancy loss in this beautiful podcast episode, and so please, just wanted to let you know that first and foremost. Just wanted to let you know that trigger warning. Now, yeah, there's so much to share with you. There's some really beautiful moments along this journey. There's obviously some really great things, some great exciting news that I wanted to share with you. And yeah, I'm also going to be talking about the hard stuff and the vulnerable stuff and bits about my journey. So buckle up, pour yourself a cup of tea, or, if you're out on your walk or in your car, like, thanks for being here and tuning in. And it would mean the world to me if you could share this with someone else who you know that would really benefit from this conversation, that maybe isn't a podcast listener, maybe, is new to my world. But this particular conversation might be really supportive for them. So would, be so grateful if you could share that with them. That would be amazing. All right. I'm like, have I shared everything for the intro? Hopefully. Now, I'm going to share my quote in a moment, but I have written notes for this podcast episode, guys. Surprise, surprise. I never do this, right? Normally, podcast episodes I don't get nervous for. I don't overthink them. I normally have a topic and a couple of bullet points at max, and I just riff and I trust the process, and I know that whatever comes out is meant to come out in that podcast episode. It's going to be great. But this one, because it's more of a vulnerable episode and because it's something close to my heart, because it means something, and not that others didn't mean something, but it really does matter, I wanted to make sure that I'm covering everything that I wanted to share with you all, and that it makes sense, that I'm not waffling and going off topic and off track here. So I will be looking at my phone a wee bit where I've jotted down some notes and ideas to share with you today. So but otherwise it's really just from the heart. Okay. Quote, inspirational quote time. Right, I've got to find this on my phone now. I took a screenshot of this earlier. All right, I don't actually know where this is from. I found it on the internet, but I think it's a great one, and I think it's really fitting for today's conversation. And I hope you love it. It goes like this. Never give up, for within the depths of the perseverance lies the extraordinary journey of hope. Embrace resilience, trust the process, and believe in the miracles that await. Love this quote. I'm going to read it again. Never give up, for within the depths of perseverance lies the extraordinary journey of hope. Embrace resilience, trust the process, and believe in the miracles that await. I love that quote. So beautiful. All right, my loves, we're diving in. First, I'm going to share my exciting, joyful news, because I think that that's first and foremost. That's important to share first. And then I'm going to go into my journey to get to this point. So the exciting, beautiful, incredible, heart-opening news is that I am pregnant, and that Brooke and I are expecting our second baby due at the end of this year, which is so exciting. And we are so grateful for this. And yeah, we're just over the moon. It's going to be the best. My little girl Blake is going to be the best big sister, and I am so excited for her to be a big sister. It's like I feel a bit emotional even saying that out loud. Like I just feel like their relationship is like watching them is just going to be. It's just going to like just be melt my heart. So I'm really excited for that, and I'll share a bit more about my journey, obviously, in a moment. But I'm just to get to this point is incredible, and I'm so happy. I'm so grateful to have this beautiful little baby growing, and they're healthy and well, and I'm just so over the moon for this. So that's the good news. That's the exciting part, and it's been such a huge journey. So the first thing I just wanted to share, I'm going to come back up to my notes again. The first thing I just wanted to share was a bit about my journey to get here, to get to this point, because I think that that's really important. And I think that there's so much in there that I wanted to share. And I hope that it's supportive for other people. And I really just want to preface this entire conversation by saying this is not really about me in any way. Yes, obviously I'm going to be sharing my personal journey, but remember, it's my personal journey. It's not necessarily anyone else's journey. It's not necessarily the right or the wrong thing. It's just my journey. And it's just my journey. And also that I'm really just sharing this in hope that if you're celebrating a pregnancy yourself, then you're here with me celebrating. And I see you and I'm so excited for you. If you're somewhere along, navigating your own fertility journey, then I see you and I hold you and I love you. And if you're grieving and navigating loss in some way, then I also see you and hold you. And I hope that this can act as some insights or some wisdom, that you feel more seen perhaps or more heard. I really hope that someone feels less alone, because that was a big part of my journey as well. And I hope that there's some good that you take of this conversation, whatever it might be for your own unique journeys. And I also think that many of the stuff that I'm going to share today and talk through is life, right? And not necessarily unique to fertility journeys in any way, but it can also be about, so many different things that might be happening in your world, or you might be navigating a different type of grief or a different loss. Or navigating another challenging time where you had to really dig in and trust the process. So, I think some of this you can apply to other things. So that was what I wanted to share first and foremost, that, it ultimately is never about me, but I really, really believe in having more of these kind of conversations, talking about the hard stuff, talking about the stuff that not normally people really talk about openly, talking about the taboo topics, or the really challenging, vulnerable topics. And I really believe that these soulful connections are so important. This is why I started the podcast episode in the first place. And I knew as I was navigating this journey that there would come a time when I wanted to share more of my story. And I knew that I wanted to purely, like I said, to add insights, wisdom, but mainly hope, connectedness, to make someone feel like they're not alone, or like they're not the only one navigating a challenging time, and that there is hope and that there is light, and some of the things that have really supported me along my journey, and hope that that is supportive for you as well. So where do I even start? Okay, so this is a vulnerable one. So let me take you back to my first pregnancy. So we have been so fortunate with our first pregnancy. When I had my little girl, Blake, we conceived really, really quickly. I had morning sickness, was pretty bad at the time and pretty challenging. And of course it changes your world instantly. But generally speaking, I had a really healthy natural pregnancy, and I had a really wonderful birth. It was challenging and really, I think some people could view that in a really challenging, not so great way, but I actually think that it was a really empowering process and really empowering experience, and something that is life-changing, and it's so hard to even put that into words. So we had a really great journey there with our first pregnancy, and I always knew that I wanted to be a mama to more than one child. And so, yeah, and I kind of wanted like a 2.5, 3-ish year age gap. But of course, you cannot control that, as I have learned in the process. But that was ultimately what we were aiming for. And so towards the end of last year, we tried conceiving for our second baby. I said would get to Blake's second birthday and then would start our process again and start that journey. And of course, there are so many unknowns. It is completely out of your control, which I think is one of the most challenging parts of all of this, but also the thing that is so universal to life and to so many people, right? We can't control it. And so, yeah, we were actually lucky in the fact that we conceived really quickly. However, in January, so earlier this year, I miscarried, which I also really hate that word. I think it's such an awful word. Lost a pregnancy loss, I think, is something that I probably resonate with more, and prefer the words of. And it was such a huge moment. And of course, it was incredibly heartbreaking and upsetting, and you question so much, you overthink so much. And of course, in my case, certainly, there weren't really any answers. It was just one of those things that this pregnancy was not a viable pregnancy. And that was a really big blow. That was a really big loss. And I just felt completely, what's the word? It just came out of the blue. Like I had no idea, no symptoms, no idea. And also that it just completely blindsided me. And it was just like a massive blow. And it was really challenging for me. Like I remember thinking, but I know that I'm meant to be a mama of more than one baby. And I know that there's this beautiful soul that's circling and they're trying to come in. And there was so much of me that just knew that I was meant to be a mama and to be a mama of more than one child. And I was like, why is this happening? What does this even mean? And yeah, it was a really challenging process. And there's lots that you go through physically as well. And obviously everyone's situation is slightly different. And I won't go through the details of mine because I think that that's not so helpful or almost irrelevant. But the key point is that it's a huge loss and it's something that is completely out of your control. Like I did everything by the textbook and everything quote unquote right. And yet it wasn't meant to be. And that was so hard to like get your head around and to process and to quote unquote understand, because it was something that just didn't make any sense to me. And yeah, it was a big blow. And then of course, you know, once you navigate the physical side of things and get your cycle back and all of those sorts of things, it's like, well, you know, I was still at this moment of like, I still really want to be a mama of more than one baby. I still really want another baby. And I still really want to go through this process. And I, you know, would love to be pregnant soon. And I was thinking about the age gap with my little girl and getting caught up in all of those sorts of things. And one thing I've just had to like really it's really challenging to actually do this, but to fully surrender to the process and trust that this little soul is going to come when they're ready to come, and it's all going to work out the way that it's meant to work out. And you know, like the age gap that I was getting so caught up on, like I smile and I like kind of cringe even saying this out loud in the podcast because it just seems so ludicrous and so human and so egoic to be like, no, I want this baby and I want it at this time frame and this age gap and all of these things. But these are these little souls that are going to come through when they're ready. And I think that, you know, something that I've really learned in this process is like one, obviously we can't control everything and anything, just the way that we show up and respond to things. But like also that there's a bigger picture going on here. There's a greater plan at play, and that the universe is always conspiring in my favor, and that it's, you know, you go through these challenging times and sometimes they don't always make sense and sometimes they're not fair. And sometimes I would, you know, never wish some of these experiences on other people. But just trusting that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that these experiences are part of your journey for a reason. And if you can find the silver lining, if you can find the meaning, if you can find the wisdom or the insights or the lessons or the growth through that process, then I think that's a beautiful thing, and that's our job. And yeah, that's not to say that the awful things that happen and the loss and there's so much grief involved in there. And it's not to say that that's, it's not to okay some of the really challenging things that might happen in life, fertility or not. But if you can find the silver lining, I think that it just creates a more positive meaning for it, and ultimately affects how you view that experience and how you show up to the rest of your life, how you show up to life and moving forward, right? So yeah, what else do I want to share about that? I think one of the big things that I was going to share was I just remember feeling so alone at that time. And that's when I knew, okay, regardless of what happens, like regardless of my journey, like I have to share this at some point in time when I'm ready, because I don't want other people to feel alone. And I would have loved to have listened to other people's journeys and stories around pregnancy loss, around their fertility journeys, because it makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel more connected. It makes you feel like it's not like quote unquote you, and that sometimes these things just happen. Sorry, I don't understand. Oh my goodness, that gave me a fright. I leant on my phone and it was Siri talking to me. Oh my goodness, what a pattern interrupt, guys. Okay. So I just felt like it was one of those things that I knew that pregnancy loss was a thing. I knew that people experience this all the time. I knew that it was a possibility, all of those sorts of things. But because many people don't openly talk about it, it makes you feel more alone. And that's a really sad thing. I mean, obviously I talked to, my family knew, my closest friends knew. And as I started opening up and talking more about it, it was obviously really challenging every single time I had to share it with someone. Not had to, I chose to share it with someone. But afterwards, I would always feel better for it. I would always feel lighter for it. And just being able to voice it, and I think that just being able to voice it and process it out loud verbally was a part of the way that I processed it, and was a part of my healing journey. And obviously I was really selective about the places and when and where I sort of spoke about these kind of things. So I think that's important to acknowledge as well and be aware of. But almost always it was just received with so much love and care and support. And that meant so much to me. It meant so much to me, especially from other mamas in my world, and some of my closest besties. And I realized that it's really common. I think the statistics are like 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss, and at some point along the journey. And so it's a lot more common than perhaps I originally thought. Maybe I was really blissfully naive and ignorant in my first pregnancy, and it is unfortunately more common than perhaps I originally thought. And hearing other people's stories as well, when I shared my vulnerability, when I shared my truth and what I was navigating and experiencing, it allowed so many other people to open up and share their own journeys and experiences as well. And I realized, through that process that, wow, it is actually really common. And so many people that I would never have known their story or their journey had experienced a pregnancy loss as well at some point in time along their journey. And it was, even though it was really emotional, really hard and really tender conversations, they are conversations that I still remember to this day and will still cherish and love. And I am just so grateful that those beautiful women were really open with me to share their journey and to share their stories. And there was just so much hope that I think was shared with me along, through those stories and journeys. And I think that's a huge part of what got me through, really. And it was yeah, it was really a huge moment and a huge time, and there's grief and so much to process within that. And of course, I was still a mama, I was still running my business, and those were huge, big things in my world and still are, obviously. And it was challenging in many ways to continue on and not have as much space and time. And other mamas will totally hear me on this one. And also, it was so healing. They were my light. You know, my little girl was just so beautiful and comforting at that time. And I mean, she always is, but like extra, extra special in those moments. And also, yeah, my clients, my coaching, my business has always been a light to me. It's always been something I'm deeply passionate about and what lights me up. And so doing that has always been, yeah, just such a beautiful thing, and always was really a really positive thing to focus on and keep me busy there. So that was really wonderful. So I think, you know, just to share a couple of things that really supported me was allowing the emotions to bubble up as and when they needed to. And there was moments when there was lots of emotions, and there was moments when there wasn't so many, and there was moments when I had to be a mama and I couldn't, you know, release all those emotions in that moment, and I had to save that for another time. And yeah, just allowing that and not judging those emotions or that process. I actually found journaling quite confronting at that time, and so yeah, and so I didn't actually lean into that too much initially, but I did later on the journey. I think those conversations, as I've mentioned, like with loved ones, with people that I really care about, with, you know, safe, open spaces, with other mamas, they were really healing. They were really important. And yeah, that was a huge part of my processing and my journeying. And just hearing other people's journeys and stories just made me feel less alone, made it feel less about like me and what I'd done wrong, quote unquote, because of course no one ever does anything wrong. And yeah, and it's not your fault in any way. It's just for whatever reason, it wasn't viable, it wasn't meant to be. And I think the other thing that helped me was going to see my beautiful friend who's a psychic, and she did a reading for me and shared her insights and her wisdom, which was so beautiful because it really helped me to see the bigger picture and to learn more about sort of, I guess, the spiritual lens of things, and that these beautiful souls have already chosen us in this lifetime to be our little babies and for us to be their mamas. And that, yeah, that soul had never gone, that the pregnancy itself wasn't viable, but they knew that, and so they jumped out, and they were they're still there and present, and they were going to join at another point in time in the future. And that, for me, whether you choose to believe that or not, that's obviously totally up to you. For me personally, that felt really true and right, and that was really helpful and healing for me to know that the soul is still there, because I could feel them and I could connect with them, and I didn't want to say goodbye to them. Like, I knew that they were going to come back around, and it was just waiting on the right opportunity for them. And that was really helpful and beautiful and healing for me as well. And then the other thing was just kind of trying to take a little bit of the emotion out of it when you can. This was further down the track, and seeing how this happens in Mother Nature and loads of different ways in life. Like I think about, we have a flower farm, or Brooke is, in on that business as well with his grandparents, and he goes out and propagates seeds all the time, every week, every couple of weeks, he's propagating seeds. So he buys these seeds, and you obviously are putting them into trays of seed raising mix, and he's putting the seeds in the little trays, and he water them, and they're in this beautiful warm hot house, and all of these sorts of things. And there's every seed packet will have a percentage of a strike rate. And it's just what happens in Mother Nature, that there'll be some seeds that don't strike. So, i.e., some seeds that don't grow or don't go into a little plant. And we can give them the exact same environment, the exact same nutrients, the light, the water, all of those sorts of things. Like, the conditions are the same, but for whatever reason, it's not viable. And I think I don't know, I feel a little bit cringe saying that analogy, but it was helpful in many ways to see this in Mother Nature, to see other examples of this, that again, and it wasn't anything that I did wrong in any way. and it's not necessarily you, it's just one of those unfortunate things. And yeah, and that was really healing and helpful for me. So take it or leave it. Obviously, anything that I'm sharing today, put this through your own filter, your own lens, and listen to your intuition. But I just purely sharing my experiences and my journey, and yeah, what was really supportive for me. So yeah, that was a huge thing. I'm going to go back to my notes now. I'm like, what did I forget? What did I want to share? I think that's that's pretty much it. I think I was going to talk about what it's taught me. I'm going to share about that in a moment. But I think the next thing for me, and what felt like a big quote unquote hurdle, was how do you trust the process after a huge loss? I think that was one of the biggest questions that I kept thinking about. And I was like, man, how do you trust? How do you surrender? How do you trust this process when you've navigated such a huge loss, when it just didn't happen? And I think this has been one of my greatest lessons. My greatest lessons has been to fully surrender to the process and to trust that it'll happen when it's meant to happen, and to trust, ultimately to trust and to have faith again. And I don't know if there's a magic answer for that. I don't know if there's a magic answer for that, but this is absolutely what I teach inside my one-to-one coaching. And I think the biggest thing was like really practicing, what I preach and walking my talk. And so, a big part of this journey has been just really leaning into meditation, into journaling, into oracle cards, into trusting and connecting with my spirit guides, with my team, my spirit team, with trusting life and the universe. And I think ultimately it was about trusting that there was this other little soul that I knew that was going to come in. And I just had to trust in their timing and trust in the universe, and completely hand over the reins, so to speak. I could show up and I could do my part of it. Take the supplements, do the things, all the things that you're meant to do and avoid, and those sorts of things in that moment, in those times when you're trying to conceive. But ultimately it was just trusting that they would come in when they're ready. And and that was huge. And I think hearing other people's stories of pregnancies that have been really successful, healthy, beautiful babies, and pregnancies following a pregnancy loss, that was so helpful and healing for me. And so I hope that this podcast episode, if you've experienced this in any way, then I see you and I love you, and I'm sending you so much love. And I get it. I've obviously navigated my own journey with this, so I deeply get it, and I'm holding you, and I'm holding you in hope. There is hope that this, you just got to trust the process and surrender to it, right? And doing everything that you possibly can to support yourself through that process. So like I said, some of those things that really supported me were really pivotal things. And I think other people, like hearing other journeys and other stories, was so wonderful and so eye-opening and healing, and gave me so much hope as well for the future. So we were really lucky again to conceive straight after, basically. And so it was overwhelming in many ways, but also such a beautiful gift. And then obviously the next part of that journey, and what I'm still navigating, is actually really trusting in this process, and trusting that it's all, my hormones are doing what they're meant to do, the baby is growing as it's meant to, that it's all healthy and well, and just ultimately trying to soothe some of the anxious feelings that I was navigating, and especially in the early stages. And, I talked with my midwife a whole lot about this. I talked to my GP about this. They were really wonderful and really supportive through this process as well. I did loads of tests and lots of things, mainly just for reassurance. But they were reassuring. They were really reassuring. And so it's been so wonderful to get to this point where so far baby is healthy and happy and well and growing beautifully and perfectly. And I have just had to, my beautiful naturopath has also been a really big support in this process as well. She's a dear friend of mine and another coach, a fellow coach. And, she was like, I'm not going to tell you just to like, everything's going to be fine and just to, forget about it or get over yourself, because that would be gaslighting. But it was ultimately about, just taking each day as it came. And what did I need to do to support myself, to calm down my nervous system, to reset my nervous system, to regulate myself? What did I need to do, to feel more supported in this process? And so it was really about like leaning on my support team, leaning on my husband, on my family, on my midwife and GP and conversations there, but also on, some of my closest friends as well. And mainly my spirit guides and my spirit team. Ultimately, really coming back to meditation and stillness and oracle cards and trusting that it was all working out in my favor. And I just like, no matter, there wasn't anything necessarily that I could do as such to confirm this stuff. Some of it is just a time factor. And so, yeah, it's been a journey with it. And it's been a journey with it. So I think it's so wonderful to get to this point in time where I feel like I can share it with everyone and, get really excited and really happy about it, and know that baby is healthy and well and growing really well. And I think there still is an element of like trusting the process, and I think there always will. And it's been something that I just had to really dig in deep into, is my own levels of self-trust and my own levels of trust in the universe and trust in my beautiful little baby and this beautiful little soul. They're so resilient and strong and capable. And and that's been a big part of it. Now, another side shoot of this whole story is that it's been more of a challenging pregnancy than my first, at least. And mainly, obviously, as I've mentioned, the anxiety and sort of the fear around that, but also nausea. I have been basically borderline hyperemesis, which if anyone has navigated that, oh my goodness, my heart goes out to you and I take my hat off to you. You are one strong cookie. Thankfully, I wasn't diagnosed with it, but almost there. So on that end of the spectrum. So horrendous morning sickness, but it's 24/7 sickness. Ultimately, I've been on medication for it, 2 lots of medication, and doing what you got to do to get through. And you know what? Many of my clients and close people on my business and my world will probably never have known that. And I wasn't necessarily trying to hide it as such, but it was just heads down, bums up. And supporting myself as much as I possibly could through those moments in that journey. And I think I really pride myself on, showing up for what really is important for me, showing up for my clients, and they've been such a light for me. As I mentioned at the start, like doing my businesses never feels like quote unquote work. It's such a joy for me. It brings me so much light and passion and fulfillment. And so it's been a huge part of my journey to, in a really positive, beautiful way. So it's been really supportive in that way. So thank you for those people. And you probably, maybe had inklings, maybe you knew, but obviously everyone knows now. But maybe you had inklings or maybe you didn't. But either way, just know that you were just such a huge light for me, and it was so wonderful to have you. So I love you. Thank you. So here we are, baby number 2 coming into the world end of this year. And I know it's the same beautiful little soul that was coming and circling end of last year and early this year. And and they knew that the time is right and the time is now. So fully trusting in that and believing in that process. So I think I'm going to check my notes again, but I really just wanted to recap some of the other things that some of the things that I've been sharing about today and navigating. And I just want to acknowledge that, your journey might be different from mine, and that's absolutely okay. And, you might not necessarily resonate with some of the things that I've shared today, but I hope that this has helped someone out there at least. And I hope that maybe there was some wisdom and some insights in that conversation for you. I hope that there's some hope and some love and some light that's been shared in there. And I hope that, this vulnerability connects us more. because vulnerability really does connect you. And so, it's totally up to you what you want to share, or if you want to share, but please know that my door is always open. If you want to send me a DM on Instagram, that would be a wonderful thing. If you want to flick me an email, whatever's best for you. But please don't feel like you need to, but if you feel touched by this episode and want to share your journey, or you want to reach out and if you want to reach out and have a listening ear, have a safe space to process this, please know that I'm always there for that and always open to these conversations. And no matter what the grief or the loss is, it's always challenging. And trusting in the process, trusting in the universe, trusting in the higher powers that be, trusting in these little souls, no matter what it is that you're bringing into the world or wanting to bring in or manifest or create in your world. It's, these are universal themes. These are universal things that we'll all navigate in varying degrees throughout our lives. And so I hope that this is insightful. I hope that it makes you feel less alone. I hope that it opens up the conversation for you in a beautiful way. And obviously choose to do what you want with this podcast and this conversation. If you've got loved ones that you want to share it with, amazing. If it's just healing to hear this yourself, then amazing. And if you want to reach out and deep dive and talk a bit further, then you know that I'm always here for that. So just really wanted to see you. If you're in the middle of navigating a really challenging time, if you're navigating loss or grief of some form, if it's a fertility journey or not, if you're bringing something else into the world that you really want to manifest, whatever it might be, and it's really about trusting the process, or maybe you're not seeing the results the way that you would like to see the results, or maybe there's been some hiccups along the way, some challenging moments, then again, I love you, I see you, and I'm just holding you with so much love. And I'm here for you. My door's always open, and please just reach out to your safe people, reach out to your loved ones, your family, your friends, your coach, your healers, your therapist, or whatever it is that you personally need to support you through this. Like, you don't have to do this alone. And I've just really found that to be such obviously really walking my talk here, and just found it really beautiful and healing and supportive for me personally as I've navigated this as well. So I see you. I love you. I think that's it. I feel like I could talk about this for a long time, and I'm so open to questions and further conversations on this if you want to. But I hope that you feel really safe and seen here, and I hope that you take something good from this podcast episode. So please hold this conversation with so much love and respect and reverence, and I trust that you'll do that. And again, disclaimer, this is just personally my journey. This is, some of my story, and I'm not sharing this for anything else. But at very least, I hope that it supports someone who needs to hear this conversation today. This isn't necessarily about me, but I think me just going first and having the vulnerable, honest conversation can be really empowering for other people. And this is really me demonstrating my leadership ultimately, that I think we need to have more of these conversations, and I hope that it empowers you to do so in some way. And I think we have come a long way with this, but I feel like there's some more work we could do there. So I hope that I can stimulate some positive change there for you, or for the world rather. Alrighty, my loves. I'm going to end on that quote. I feel like that was such a beautiful quote that I need to end on. So I'm going to share that again with you. And I hope that helps. Never give up, for within the depths of perseverance lies the extraordinary journey of hope. Embrace resilience, trust the process, and believe in the miracles that await. So beautiful. All right, my loves, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, oh my goodness, I love you. I see you. Thank you. And just sending you so much love.